The 2014 Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series, brought to you from Georgia Public Broadcasting. Now, the race for Attorney General.
Good evening, I'm Claire Sims, all-platform journalist for Georgia Public Broadcasting in Atlanta. We'd like to welcome you and our live studio audience to the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series originating from the studios of GPB. This is the debate between the candidates for Georgia's Attorney General. Now, let's meet the candidates. They are, in alphabetical order, Greg Hecht, a former Assistant District Attorney and formerly in the Georgia State Senate, and Sam Olens, the Attorney General since 2011. Now let's meet our panelists. Tom Baxter is a columnist for The Supporter Report. Michelle Eloy is a general assignment reporter for WABE 90.1. And Kathleen Joyner is a reporter covering government affairs and metro courts at The Daily Report. This debate will consist of 3 rounds. For more information on the rules, please visit atlantapressclub.org. Now let's get started. In the first round, the candidates will be asked one question from a specific panelist, and one question will be posed to both candidates. Michelle Eloy, you get the first question for Sam Olens.
Mr. Olens, the former head of the Georgia Department of Corrections had an op-ed in a Kentucky paper laying out his opposition to the death penalty. And a number of botched executions in other states has put the policy in question nationwide. Should the state consider overturning that policy?
You know, when you're the state's lawyer, your primary responsibility is day-to-day representation of the agencies and to defend and enforce Georgia laws. I believe it's inappropriate for the Attorney General to make that type of policy decision. That is for the legislature and for the governor. I will agree that it is an appropriate public policy decision, but my job is to defend the laws as they are rather than to comment on how the laws should be.
Thank you, Mr. Olens. Kathleen Joyner, it is your turn to ask Mr. Hecht a question.
Mr. Hecht, speaking of defense of the laws, you have said that if you were Attorney General, you would not defend the state's same-sex marriage ban. I believe you cited cost and some of the decisions in other states. So how would you decide which laws or referendums you would defend and which ones you wouldn't?
Well, Ronald Reagan Solicitor General Theodore Olson said we're not to defend unconstitutional laws. Attorney General Olens last year said if a law is clearly unconstitutional in the February AJC blog, you're not to defend it. 25 courts have said that the marriage equality ban is unconstitutional based on a violation of the Equal Protection Clause, the Due Process Clause, and the Right Privileges and Immunities Clause. These are Georgia constitutional provisions. You have to have a clear body of precedent that says something is unconstitutional. Attorney General Olens prohibited drug testing after the governor signed legislation last year. There was no clear body of case precedent in that case. He didn't base it on unconstitutionality. What we should be doing is fundamentally protecting citizens in need, such as 400 children who passed away between 2011 and 2013, and protect them as opposed to wasting time on unconstitutional laws.
May I respond?
Yes, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
So first of all, federal law prohibited drug testing on the food stamp recipients. It's a federal program. Absolutely, I did the right thing. With regard to the issue of same-sex marriage, once again, we're not a policy role. Justice Kennedy in the Windsor case said it would pose grave consequences for executive branch officers to not defend the law. What Mr. Hecht is seeking is that the executive branch play judicial branch. Totally inappropriate.
Thank you both. Mr. Baxter, you have a question now for both candidates.
And we will start with Mr. Olens. It used to be that all reporters had press passes and got paid, but it's a different world right now. And we've had cases in the past few weeks in which a temporary restraining order sought by a candidate for office was issued against a blogger, and another case in which you yourself spoke out against what was going on, in which a blogger was forcefully removed from what had been advertised as a public event and possibly had her video tampered with. Are the current laws in Georgia sufficient to guarantee the First Amendment rights of citizen journalists?
Tom, I think they are, and frankly, I was unbelievably perturbed by the court issuing that order in the case involving the DeKalb County Commission. The idea of doing that as an ex parte without any comment from the citizen blogger, in my opinion, was 100% inappropriate. We have to day in and day out protect the rights, not only of the First Amendment, but of what is sometimes called the fourth branch of government, being the press. I did that when we were at the pumpkin farm in Dahlonega in protecting and respecting the citizen blogger's right at that time. And I thought it was totally inappropriate for her to have been taken away.
Mr. Hecht?
Well, the Attorney General has been selective about his enforcement of the Open Records Act. You may remember that the news outlets had a very difficult time getting records with regard to child fatality cases. You may remember that some of those records were highly redacted and others were not. There's a serious flaw, and had been since 2009 up through 2014, where these records were not made available and were covering up 90 deaths in 2011 related to the Child Protection Agency in Georgia, 150 in 2012, and 180 in 2013. No investigation or protection was taken by the Attorney General's office. And in 2014, finally in an election year, the governor's office made some change, but there's a problem with that change because it ends up with redaction of case summaries and placements for children. The problem is uneven redactions occur, which means there is a blocking of information and children are left at risk. We need to change that.
Once again, may I respond?
Yes, 30 seconds.
Senate Bill 365 was passed this year, which permitted more disclosure. It's not my job, once again, to act as if act contrary to Georgia law. It's my job to follow Georgia law. If you don't like the law, that's what the legislature is for. Secondly, when agencies have those requests, they handle them, not my office.
Thank you both. That concludes the first round. Now each candidate will get to ask a question of the other. Each will have 30 seconds to ask their question, and then 60 seconds to respond, and then 30 seconds for a rebuttal. Mr. Hecht, your question for Mr. Olens.
Attorney General Olens, in 2012, Georgia was ranked 50th out of 50 states in enforcing public corruption and ethics laws. This past year, you paid $3 million of Georgia tax money to settle 4 whistleblower cases, as opposed to actually investigating corruption allegations brought to you by the ethics director in 2011. And your office was sanctioned $10,000 for hiding evidence in a whistleblower case that you saw. How can you actually tell officials that you can actually be a check and balance on corruption?
You know, you've combined about 3 things in your question, so let me try and handle it. First of all, we appealed the judge's decision. We think he's clearly wrong. 5 past presidents of the state bar, 2 of which are plaintiffs' lawyers, have totally sided with our office. Secondly, my office did spend the $3 million. The Ethics Commission did. The Ethics Commission was responsible for the 2 wrongful dismissal cases and the 2 wrongful retaliation cases. Once again, we don't operate the agency, we represent the agency. And I'm not going to defend Georgia's ethics laws because I too believe they need to be much stronger.
Mr. Hecht, you have 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Well, that's not correct. In 2011, the ethics director brought you the charges of violations of the government's Ethics Act, and you did nothing. You did not investigate and let the ethics director get squeezed out. In 2013, you were given a memo that said the governor's aides threatened the ethics commissioner, the new one, to make the governor's ethics charges go away. You didn't disclose that, and the judge said in that case it would undermine judiciary's confidence. That's wrong. You need to investigate corruption at all times.
Mr. Olens, it is now your turn to ask Mr. Hecht a question.
You know, I'm not going to ask Mr. Hecht a question. I am disgusted with the negative politics and the throwing facts in every given direction to make a political point. Every time you look at TV, all you see is another nasty commercial, and I'm not going to be part of it at this debate. My campaign is positive based on my 4 years in office protecting Georgians, and I'm not going there.
Okay, Mr. Hecht, would you like to respond?
I would. The role of the Attorney General under statute is to partially be the top law enforcement officer, to investigate and protect Georgians. Between 2011 and 2013, we had over 424 children who passed away who had a relationship with the Department of Family and Children's Services. Statutory power gives the Attorney General the power to investigate and protect Georgians from this difficulty and these deaths. This Attorney General also could have enforced the law where 3,000 child abuse investigations went beyond the 45-day regulatory.
Mr. Hecht, your time is up.
Can I respond to his latest negative question? I mean, you asked him to respond to my non-question.
Yes, you get 30 seconds.
So first of all, in 2011, DFACS changed their system, and many of those deaths are not due to activity with DFACS. They cover things such as drownings in swimming pools, other natural and accidental causes. We all know one death is one too many, and we all know that there needs to be improvements with DFACS. But once again, whenever there's a state agency Mr. Hecht disagrees with, he wants to blame the Attorney General. Perhaps he should seek to be the DFACS director rather than the Attorney General.
Okay. That was the end of that round. If you are just joining us, this is the debate between the candidates for Georgia's Attorney General. We will now go to our third and final round, and in this round, our panelists will question the candidates until we run out of time. Mr. Baxter, you get the first question of this round.
Mr. Olens, at a time when the Attorney General's office farms out work to private law firms and Georgia's poultry industry is competing in a tight market with Maryland, how can you justify joining in a suit that attempts to block the EPA from tightening up agricultural pollution in the Chesapeake Bay?
You know, we have a situation in the federal government now where the extreme is thought to be the normal. For instance, look at the new Water of the United States rule, where a property has water one day a year, you should need to get a NEPA federal permit rather than a state permit. We, in fact, are protecting the agriculture industry of our state, which is my job, representing the Department of Agriculture. When other states take extreme positions that are contrary to Georgia jobs and Georgia farmers, I'm going to defend those Georgia farmers and Georgia jobs.
Okay, now Michelle Alloy, it's your turn for a question.
Mr. Hecht, you've alluded a few times to one of your campaign platforms, which is to improve the Division of Family and Children's Services. Part of that includes a dedication to remove kids who are in dangerous situations, and I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But how do you balance the realities that the foster care system in this state is facing, trying to bring in families, trying to place kids in their care now that they're struggling to do with?
Well, what we need to stop doing is returning children to homes where there's drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and family violence. The Attorney General under statute 45-15-17 has the authority to investigate departments and protect at-risk Georgians. Nobody's more at risk right now than our children. He has the power to enforce the law to make sure that abuse investigations are timely. He has the power with the lawsuits that we have on child abuse to make sure that protective measures are taken to protect our liabilities. Somebody mentioned a pool. You don't let a child drown in a pool and then not put up a fence to make sure that more children drown in the future. The fence is not being put up. If you make Greg Hecht your next Attorney General, the fence will stay there, and we'll be making sure we monitor at-risk files to protect children in the future.
May I respond to the latest negative attack?
Yes.
Okay. Senate Bill 365 specifically gave the Georgia Bureau of Investigation the authority over the annual child fatality report. What Mr. Hecht is suggesting is more bureaucracy to solve the problem. Just as you don't put more administrators in a school that have high teacher-student ratios, that being you want to hire more teachers, you don't solve the DFACS problem with more lawyers and investigators. You hire more social workers. If there's one thing DFACS needs, it's more social workers to reduce the caseloads so that those caseworkers can, in fact, do a better job protecting our children.
Okay, we're going to move on. Kathleen Joyner, it's your turn for a question.
General Olens, I'd like to give you a chance to flesh this question out a little more. Mr. Hecht mentioned the whistleblower lawsuits and the Ethics Commission, specifically the judge's sanctions for failure to turn over the memo produced by the Ethics Commission's former executive secretary that alleged interference from the governor's office into his 2010 campaign. How aware were you of your office's decision not to turn over that memo? Do you support that decision, or do you believe it should have been handled differently?
Okay, so first I'm going to defend my lawyer and support the decision. In litigation, you don't hand out every document that's relevant. You hand out documents that are specifically requested, and if the lawyers don't ask for that type of document, it's not our job to fleece the taxpayers in providing the whole file. I would note, as I did before, that 2 of the 5 former state bar presidents that say our office did everything correct were plaintiffs' lawyers. That being, they sue the state all the time rather than defend the state. Thirdly, we need to be careful that when we're in fact representing an agency in litigation, it's difficult to take other actions at that time. And we've tried to create as many ethical screens as possible with regard to the Ethics Commission. There is no question they have been dysfunctional. There's no question there needs to be a change in the law concerning ethics and the Commission. But our job in those cases is to defend Georgia law. In regard to your comment about when did I know, I only knew after our head of special criminal prosecutions told me it did not violate a crime. I left the casework to the line lawyers.
Mr. Olens, your time is up.
Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Baxter, it's your turn for a question.
Mr. Hecht, State Senator Josh McCoon has said that he's going to reintroduce his proposal to set up a statewide grand jury that would examine public corruption at the state as well as the local level. The Attorney General would have a large role in conducting investigations and presenting evidence. Do you endorse this concept, and do you see any possible problems with it?
I support statewide grand juries. It's critical to get the local corruption out of the local court because there may be improper influences there. I'm the only one that's actually prosecuted crimes. I was an assistant district attorney and prosecuted thousands of felonies. In this particular case, if you're going to go after corruption, if you're going to be a check and balance on government, you want to have the authority to bring in state officials in a statewide grand jury so that prosecutions can occur. On the other question that was spoken of, Attorney General Olens admitted in a July 2014 statement to the press by his office that he had that memo back in the fall of 2013 that said there was a threat against the ethics director that if she did not make the ethics charges go away, that they would eliminate or not give the rulemaking authority to the Ethics Commission. How can you ever have credibility at prosecuting corruption, whether it's with statewide grand juries, if you withhold evidence?
Michelle, it's your turn for a question.
Mr. Olens, on the state's constitutional ban against same-sex marriage, same-sex marriage is now legal in 30 states. Should the ban be overturned in Georgia, as has happened in every state where such bans have been challenged so far, would you appeal that decision?
Well, first of all, there have been several states where the courts have not struck the law, so let's first put that on the stage. Secondly, it's not my job to state my personal opinion on same-sex. I think it's actually contrary when you're the Attorney General to do so, because once again, my primary job is not to replace the courts, but to defend Georgia law. Until there is presidential law, that being the 11th Circuit or U.S. Supreme Court, specifically dealing with our law, my oath of office requires that I defend the law. What I find, frankly, very interesting about Mr. Hecht's comments in this regard is when he unsuccessfully ran for lieutenant governor 8 years ago, he was not only against same-sex marriage, he was against civil unions. And I could find no record of the conversion from against same-sex marriage to same-sex marriage until after he qualified for Attorney General. That's politics, not law.
Ms. Joyner, it's your turn for a question.
Mr. Hecht, earlier this year, the state Supreme Court issued a ruling that some people say makes it harder for people to get injunctive relief against the state. They feel like it gives the state an unfair advantage against people who may have been hurt by state agencies or departments. What do you think of the High Court's decision?
Well, I find it troubling that Georgia citizens will have a difficulty getting relief against their own government. I find it troubling that $3 million of tax money is utilized, which shouldn't have been utilized to settle for whistleblower cases, which should have been never expended because someone should have investigated corruption in the beginning. I find it troubling that 90 children in 2011, 150 in 2012, and 180 in 2013 had to pass away because no one decided to investigate and protect. And I find it incredibly troubling that on this stage 4 years ago, our Attorney General, back then a candidate, said, ethics is the key, and you have to expect more of your public officials than you would others, and you shouldn't expect the least. The problem we have now is we're not transparent, we're not providing protections for our citizens, and we're not protecting vulnerable Georgians.
You know, we keep hearing the same negative attack over and over again. Per the Georgia Constitution, the three main roles of the Attorney General are day-to-day representation, capital felonies in the Supreme Court, and handling litigation. That is the primary job of the Attorney General, not to be a politician, to be a lawyer. My job is to defend the state. When state law is not appropriate, that's what the legislature is for. It may be cute to make little taglines, but my job is to defend the law. Whether I like the law or not, it's my job.
Mr. Olens, you have spent quite a bit of your time this evening talking about how your job is not a partisan one, but it's strictly based on the law. Can you give me some examples of when you have gone against maybe what your party would have wanted the ruling to be?
Well, absolutely. My opponent actually mentioned one earlier when I told the governor that you could not put drug restrictions on food stamps. I want you to infer or to think that the internet was not kind to me that night by members of my own party. You may recall also where there was an issue when the president made his DACA deferred action ruling as to whether individuals that had the deferred action should get driver's licenses. The governor sent me a letter and I told them they get driver's licenses. We're going to follow Georgia law. Title 40, Section 5 specifically said people with deferred action get driver's licenses. I'd like you to assume Morning Radio wasn't happy with me there either. But laws aren't Republican or Democrat. They're laws. And whether I like them or dislike them, it is my oath of office to follow the laws.
Thank you. We're going to go back to our panel. Mr. Baxter.
Mr. Hecht, a moment ago, Mr. Olens more or less implied that you had a kind of an election day conversion with regard to or maybe qualifying day conversion with regard to same-sex marriage. Could you address that? What was the evolution of your views?
Well, I think like the president back in 4 years ago when he said marriage was between a man and a woman, and 4 years later said, you know, these bans are unconstitutional. But I'm being a lawyer as well on this because 25 courts have said that this ban is unconstitutional. The U.S. Supreme Court said it violated the Equal Protection Clause when it came down to striking 1,000 federal regulations. What Mr. Olens has basically said in his briefs are marriage is only for having children. Well, that was struck down in 30 separate courts. He does not have an explanation that satisfies constitutional scrutiny, but I'd love to hear what his argument that actually will satisfy constitutional scrutiny. I wouldn't leave that on my staff. I'd like to hear what Mr. Olens really has as a real argument that would satisfy constitutional equal protection laws.
You know, it's really demeaning to the job of Attorney General when you make one political statement after another when this is a legal job and not a political job. We, in fact, are defending Georgia law because that's my oath. We're, in fact, defending Georgia law because Justice Kennedy expressly admonished attorneys general who did not take similar action. As I mentioned before, there is no Supreme Court case or no 11th Circuit case that says Georgia law is not constitutional. Whether I like the law or don't like the law, it is my job to defend the law.
Thank you both. That is all the time we have for questions. Candidates will now have 60 seconds each for a closing statement. By random selection, Mr. Olens is going to make our first closing statement.
You know, I lost my mom when I was 5, my dad when I was 12. We moved to a new place with my aunt and uncle, and my uncle died at 14. It was not an easy rearing. I worked a lot of jobs. I paid my way through college and paid my way through law school. And I learned about the value of education, the value of working hard, the value of being a success. And I've been honored to serve as your Attorney General the last 4 years protecting Georgians. I'm honored to be the only Republican candidate having the endorsement of the Police Benevolent Association, having the endorsement of the Fraternal Order of the Police, having the endorsement of the vast majority of district attorneys and sheriffs in the state, to include the sheriffs of DeKalb County and Fulton County, both Democrats, along with many other elected Democrat officials. I'm going to continue to reduce sex trafficking in the state, prescription drug abuse, and Medicaid fraud. I want your vote. I ask for your vote. It has been my honor to serve you. God bless this state and our country.
Thank you, Mr. Olens. Mr. Hecht, it's your 60 seconds for your closing remarks.
After serving as an assistant district attorney, a state senator, and a state representative, Sherry and I thought we were going to retire from public service, but 5 years ago we were blessed to adopt twin daughters who were 4 years old at the time, spent time in foster care to start with, and they didn't know their letters, and they didn't know their numbers, and they used to hide food under their bed. But with love and structure and faith, we're a loving family in a safe environment. Over 400 children lost their lives in this state. It's time to take action. We have a child protection plan that appoints 10 investigators and 5 specially trained attorneys to look at at-risk files to protect children from being returned to abusive homes, to open up records in child fatality cases so that case summaries and waiting times are reviewed, and to demand safe placements from our state so that children are not subject to the alcohol abuse, drug abuse, and family violence again. I'm Greg Hecht, your next Attorney General.
Thank you both. That concludes tonight's debate. We'd like to remind all voters that the general election will be held on Tuesday, November 4th, and early voting begins tomorrow. Our thanks to the candidates and to our panel of journalists. We'd also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club for arranging this debate. For more information about the Atlanta Press Club and all of the debates they are hosting this election season, visit atlantapressclub.org. This debate will be archived there on the website, and the debate will also be available on demand at gpb.org. The Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series is made possible by a donation from R. Charles Loudermilk. Please stay with GPB for Masterpiece Classic, The Paradise. That's up next. I'm Claire Sims. Thanks for joining us for the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series.